Welcome to Being Confident from Within with Natalie Potts, the podcast that shares what it really takes to be confident. I'm passionate about helping people grow businesses with confidence. Does it seem like everyone around you is naturally confident and sure of themselves? Well, the chances are they have self-doubts just like you. I'm in conversations with inspiring individuals to share what confidence means to them and to help you find ways to believe in yourself and create confidence at any time. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. Share with us all around who Mike is, what you do, and anything else that's on your mind.
Awesome. Natalie, thank you so much for having me along. It's a pleasure. So I am a coach. I'm an ICF accredited coach, but I've got a background in corporate finance. I'm a chartered accountant by trade and still am a chartered accountant. What do? I help people, whether that's with small business owners or employees, find working lives that work for them. So I'm a huge fan that, we can enjoy our work. We should enjoy our work. And our work should provide the life that we want. Now, that might be doing lots of challenging work. That might be how we get that identity, or it might be about freedom and flexibility, or it could be somewhere in between the two. And we're all different, and trying to understand what it is that we really want, individually. And then how do we use our unique blend of skills, knowledge, experience to do that and deliver that? And that's where I get very excited about looking in. And one of the things I've been out trying to explain to as many people as I can is understanding how we're hardwired. Like, what's those traits that are so ingrained in us? Because as a coach, I know there are limiting beliefs and things that we can break, we can get over. But there's other things that are really hardwired into how we are. And I know we're talking confidence, and it fits so well with that confidence and how it flows. And so I'm keen to bring a bit of that angle to this conversation and see what that means for your listeners.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And let's build on from that then. So what does confidence mean to Mike?
Yeah. And funnily enough, it's a question that's made me stop and think. I was like, what does confidence mean to me?
The amount of people have said that, and I'm like, it's such a basic question. But
it's such a basic question.
It's like when people say, like, what do you want? And they're like, what? And it's like, what do you really want? And they seem so simple, but it manifests so much. So yeah.
And it's fascinating because there's confidence and there's arrogance. And I think the reason most people pause is because they don't want to jump into an arrogant statement.
Okay.
And they're trying to think, well, what does confidence mean to them? For me, it means being at peace with yourself. So who you are. And by being at that peace, you can be authentically you. And if you're being authentically you, then you stop worrying about the things that you find difficult. You stop worrying about the quirks that make you very special, but that you maybe don't overly like.
Yeah.
Because that's just part of how you are. Yeah. And instead you come back to that comfort and support and encouragement about, this is where I'm special and this is why it's really cool. And I think it's so hard to do, right? I don't think it's not an easy thing to do. But if you can really get at peace with yourself, then you can really authentically be yourself. Then confidence is an incredibly natural thing that follows.
Yeah. I love the phrase there, being at peace with yourself. That's really interesting. Has that taken time for, I'm going to make the assumption that you're confident and you'll have peace with yourself then.
Yeah.
Has that taken time to be in that place and understand that narrative for yourself?
Yeah, massively. And one of the things I find so hard when I look back, so we have strengths and we have what most people call weaknesses. I'm going to call them challenges for a second.
Okay.
Because some of those, in fact, so let's say weaknesses to start with. Some of those weaknesses are just because we haven't done it yet, or we haven't done it enough yet. And having got that experience, having done some training, having, maybe we're nervous standing up in front of people. Well, if you stand up in front of people every day for 2 years, the chances are you're not going to feel so nervous at the end. You still might not want to do it, but you probably don't feel nervous getting up and doing it anymore. So there's some stuff like that just goes. But there are other things that are just a challenge and will just always be a challenge. And I'm dyslexic, I'm neurodiverse. And I've kind of buried my head away from that. I've kind of ignored it. I've ignored the strengths that come with it, although I've benefited massively from those, that I see the big picture, that I have a very logical mind. And so with problems. I'm excellent in a firefighty scenario. Oh no, finance world's coming crashing down. What we've tried is not working. Throw Mike in, he'll solve the problem for you really quickly and actually really easily for me. So I've benefited from the strengths, but I've always shied away and tried to hide the weaknesses. And what I've more recently come to just accept is that's okay. How I am is okay. The mitigations that I use over those challenges, because the challenges around my dyslexia include memory. They include so my handwriting's really slow. Actually, now, much less of an issue. I mean, I type everything. But if I go back, I started work 20 years ago. Back then, we did a lot still handwritten, in files.
Yeah.
When laptops had to basically be plugged in all the time because the batteries were so awful, you couldn't take them. You could walk to a different room, but you'd plug it in because it won't last. And so technology has really helped because my typing speed's fast, my handwriting speed's slow. And I was going in, if I use a quick example, I was going into these meetings where people were handwriting notes and I just typed them in. As soon as I got a laptop with a battery good enough, I typed them in. And so at the end of the meeting, I'd have already typed out some notes, some actions, put them in an email and press send as I walked out the door. Everyone else later on will write out their notes, type them up, and then they'll email them around. Equally, they won't get to do that straight away. They'll go into other meetings first. They're going to go back-to-back meetings, possibly all day, and then spend hours later going back, looking at the notes, going, what did I even write?
Yeah.
So I'm getting stuff out the door faster. I'm using my time more efficiently. And do you know what? I'm doing all that just because I'm mitigating a challenge for me. By the time I left work in the corporate environment a couple of years ago, typing out your notes as you went on a laptop was absolute standard. Why wouldn't you do it? It's just more efficient. And so what I found interesting is being aware of those challenges, how we can mitigate them, trying not to lean on the mitigations that we find difficult. I didn't find typing notes out difficult. I found that fine. If I did find it difficult, I would try not to have a job that required me to do that.
Yeah.
But so which bits do you understand are problems and which bits actually form into strengths? And I feel like you almost need time to be able to then look back. So it's easy for me now to look back over my career and go, I see how I have now used these different bits, and I can start to be confident now that I've settled into who I am. But in my early 20s, I'm not sure I couldn't say that same point. And see, like I'm trying to feel my way through and understand. And one of the challenges I think now in confidence is it's much easier for people like me. I'm early 40s. It's much easier for people like me to go, I just need to be authentically you. You need to understand yourself. I think it's much harder for something in their 20s to have fully got that understanding compared to understanding where they are now, but still being molded and shaping what's going on for them. It's that malleability I think they've probably still got, and I've probably got less of, but actually helps me be more confident about who I am as a result. It's bizarre. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. There's loads within that. And I was just looking because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I always sometimes I make notes. And it was Jack Canfield's one around confidence, and he was sharing that 64% of the information we'll take in we'll lose within 24 hours, and that's just going part of that, like you just shared, of actually just what works for you. A part of that's about, we talk of, and I've shared a lot with people this week, is confidence about you knowing yourself really well and how you work. And like you said, that what are your challenges and making them your strengths as such, but going through that experience and that process of doing it to understand what works for you and what doesn't work as well. And then that therefore breeds more confidence when you find something and it works, and you do more of it because you get experience. It's really interesting to think of that. And but then how you continue to use that information as well. And then what you just shared there as well around this idea that the age thing it's interesting. I remember a female sharing with me a while ago. She was like, for me, as women, do we ever get to the point where we're just kind of happy with ourselves? Or it's like, can you ever reach that as such? Or that confidence to say, I don't give an F as such, is that possible? And I was like, yeah, I think it is. But I can say that now. I wouldn't have been able to say that, I don't know, even 8 years ago. It wouldn't have been possible to think that you could even say it, but you can reach those points. But then maybe it's the fact that it's the patience as well that will come in time. It's not, if you're in your 20s and you're seeking it and you want that because you hear, if like someone 35 and 40 say that you can, it's like, well, I can get that. And it's like, just allow it to be as well and enjoy the journey and part of that, because it's your experience that will bring that, and different experiences. It's not just going to be overnight. And I think that's the thing with confidence too, is that maybe, if you're wanting to be, this term of this phrase, naturally confident, or want to be more confident in an area, know that it's going to take time. It's not going to be instant. And allowing that to just be, but raise your awareness in the change you're going through as well.
Yeah. I think part of that is understanding where you're at in your journey.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And if I think back to where I did have confidence, so, as a 28-year-old, where was I confident? I was confident that I learned quickly. I was confident that I was prepared to ask questions, to learn, naturally inquisitive. But I would only ever worry if I asked the same question again. And that's because I obviously didn't understand it the first time. And if I didn't understand it the first time, I should have asked in that moment and gone, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Now, if there wasn't time to get the fuller explanation, fine. I'm not then worried about asking again. But if I asked the question, someone explains it, I didn't really get it, and I didn't stop and go, yeah, I didn't really get that.
Yeah.
But I knew a lot of colleagues who were scared to ask questions.
Yeah.
And they weren't scared because of the environment, to be fair. I think the environment was a very nurturing, very open, ask questions. We want you to learn this stuff. We want you to be the best you can as fast as possible. But it takes a certain type of person to go, no, I'm okay with that way that I operate, because I see the results. I see that means that I go very quickly through a learning curve. And okay, I might start low on the learning curve, but I know myself that I will quickly be somewhere else. And so I'm gonna let go of the feeling that I've got right now, knowing that in literally weeks' time, I'm going to feel very differently about it.
Yeah.
And that gave me a confidence that really has really, really helped. But again, I'd encourage people to come back to that. That was understanding a bit of how I'm wired, like how I'm hardwired. I used dyslexia as an example earlier, but it's true for all of us. We have traits, personality traits that are just how we are, and knowing those and then leaning into them and being confident with them, or having trust in them, can help breed that confidence.
Yeah. And I remember one, actually, when I was I got some feedback. So I was in retail leadership for 19 years, and I got some feedback that I was blunt.
Okay.
I said, right. And my style is, I'm a very direct communicator. And we then, it got a little bit like, this is a little bit dull now, because it's like it's seen as a weakness, challenge, whatever, negativity. And it's like, it's also a strength. And then one manager turned around and said, do you know what? There gets to a point when you are who you are, that's how it is, and bloody use it, and that's it. And then and use it in that way with people. Tell people, that's how I am. This is what you get from it. This is what's amazing off of that, if you're seeing it in that way and reframing it. And that completely shifted the way I saw it as well. And it wasn't to dilute it to think, oh, everything's a strength and everything's nice, but it was a way of actually that could really drive and empower me for more by changing that narrative in my mind of the way I see it. And I think that's a lot in confidence too. I think, like you said, is being able to have the high awareness, change the narrative, but also and a lot very similar coming through is, like you shared about, people are scared to ask questions, and it holds you back if you don't. And you're right, sometimes the environments have to be set up for that as well, but there is also something that you can create that environment. I can say to, it's like clients, this is a safe space, this is this, and then they won't ask a question and it'll come up down the road, and it's like, well, why didn't you just bring it up? So but it's just not natural. It's interesting. And sometimes there's not like a definitive answer to this. It's just the exploration pieces we shared, and I say this phrase quite a lot, but just paying attention to, well, what does that mean now? I'm not quite sure. Having patience with that, and letting it just naturally come about and go, that's a light bulb. That's what it meant. That's it. That makes sense to me more. And I think that people think they've got to know the answers to confidence. They've got to know why they're not and what they can do to suddenly tick box it. And I'm there. And it's like, that's where I think this idea of confidence is so interesting to get into conversation with, because it isn't that at all. And it's actually, there is actually probably, as much as you can look in Oxford and define it to belief of something in someone, half the time when you ask people what confidence means to them, they don't talk about that. So it's so unique, and it can bring conversation so many different ways. And that's where I just find it really interesting. Who I think, because our networks are, we don't know each other really well, so it's interesting to ask this question. Who do you know, who I might know though, then, that has a type of confidence that you might like to have a little bit more of?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question.
Are you from like they're really inspiring or something as well,
So one of the catches I have to that, I've been blessed. One of my skills is I can just see where people's strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah.
Now in a team environment, that's excellent, because if I need help, I go to the people whose strengths it is. I don't ask the people whose weaknesses it is. I don't just randomly pick. I go and ask someone very specific, which means I learn quickly because I get the best advice or the best available advice. What it also means is if I think of, different quite well-known people, probably in circles we know, I look at it and see their strengths against their personality. And I recognize that their personality, so I could use Lisa Johnson as an example. We're both in her membership, and she's a fantastic character. She's a very, very successful, very wise, fantastic advice. But her personality and my personality are quite different.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm pleased that there is great difference in the world. So if I look at her and think I want to be more like her, I'm kidding myself, because then I'm breaking that. I need to be more authentically me.
Yeah.
And actually that's true for kind of everyone I look at. So I look at those people who seem to embrace who they are. I've got one. So we were both at Expert Empires, right? Yeah. So we didn't know we were both there, but we were both at Expert Empires.
But we could figure out.
And we saw Lewis Howes talk.
Yeah.
Do you see Lewis Howes talk? Do you see
that? He was the reason I went.
Okay.
It was one of those nights where I was on my sofa with a few gins, and I was like, Lewis Howes in London? Yep, I'm there. Which purpose to get you in.
And he was fantastic, right? And he came up and he gave his 3 questions, and he went through those bits, and they're all really, really good. But he talked about his dyslexia.
Yes.
And he talked about how that had hindered him through college, how he'd found college difficult, how he'd found refuge, if you like, in sport, how that when he got injured and can no longer do sport, his whole identity was wiped away, and how that's led him to the School of Greatness and the stuff that he's doing. And that was all fascinating. Mm-hmm. Did you notice the typos in his presentation?
No.
So there were at least 2 typos in his presentation. What's fascinating is, so Nick James, the organizer of Expert Empires, has separately said on emails that some of the headline speakers he's had, I think Gary Vee was one of them.
Yeah.
And the fee was $125,000, I think.
Yeah.
So let's assume that Lewis Howes was paid upwards of $50,000. You think? I mean, a sizable fee.
Yeah, I could imagine.
To fly in, give that talk.
Sure. Absolutely.
I think he did Stephen Bartlett's podcast while he was over and then flew back.
He did, yeah.
So could he not afford for someone to check his slides? Has he never done that talk to anyone ever before? So did he, if he's never done it to anyone before, he knocked it up on the plane on the way over. Incredible, because it was a brilliant talk. If he has done it before, then one, no one's pointed it out to him.
Yeah.
Possible, but I think unlikely. He must have given that talk to thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I know there are people who, when they see these things, cannot stop themselves but messaging and saying, "Oh, great talk," but, which, by the way, I didn't do, because I'm not one of them. I'm like, I'm not going to diminish what was an excellent talk by pointing out too many things.
Yeah.
And that leads me to one other conclusion. He knows, he's identified that that's part of how he is, and he's basically said, "I don't care.
Yeah.
My message is powerful enough. I don't care that I've put 2 S's in whatever the word was." And that's what I'd like to be like. Now, my form of dyslexia isn't to use typos. That's the sort of stuff I see. I just have to look at every single word of something when it's shown. But it means I'm brilliant at spotting errors. That is how it shows in me. However, I'd love to be that confident in me going, yeah, so what? And I think that is confidence in its purest, because people will knock him. Someone will have sent an email going, or a message going, "Dude, that's lame. You've put 2 S's in whatever, and you did it, whatever." And real confidence is to never think about it. Like, You might see the note and instantly you've moved on. You've not taken a minute to think about it and then you've just, so what? Doesn't matter. That's okay. I'm so confident in who I am. I can let that go, knowing that it's doing me no harm. And I think that's the key point. I know that that isn't doing me any harm. If it's doing me harm, I should consider what I need to do about it. But if it's not doing me harm, and I'd like to add, if it's not doing harm to others, because I think one point of confidence is, I'm trying to think of let me say, don't be a prick.
Yeah, you can say that's fine.
I normally use a slightly different word. I normally say, I'll say it, and you can always beep it out, I suppose. Don't be a dick. Okay.
No, so I say all the time. With kindness, I say it, but you're being a dickhead.
Yeah. So being authentically you, is not an excuse to be a dick and treat other people badly.
Yeah. No, and I absolutely love that phrase there, about the not harming anyone or harming others, and just say what it doesn't matter. It's interesting because I can be the same. My mind sometimes thinks incredibly fast compared to how I do things, and my mum gets very, very frustrated that I don't detail work. She's like, she'll read all of my stuff before I send it out sometimes, and books, workbooks, and all that jazz. And she sat there one day and she's like, well, this is great, isn't it? It's why you and Dad ended up where you did, and I'm in I was admin all my life. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I have to do all the detail. I'm the one doing the work. And I was like, right. Because you need to just like delegate and do it. And I was like, yeah. I said, that bores me what you're doing. And it was so funny. But I'm just not in that detail. It really frustrates her. But I'm just not. I honestly don't care. And then when I said to her, I said, one of the people in my email subscription lists, very kindly, but she messaged me back, and the whole email was about my grammar and how she wanted to help me with my grammar. And I literally said, I don't give an F. And I said, look, in the kindest way, I said, thank you so much. I really value your feedback and everything, the time it's taken to do that. I'll be really honest. I don't really care. I said, because the message in it's there. I know what I'm doing. I'll help who I help to. And if I turn people away, fine. I've been towards me. Brilliant. I said, my challenge back to you is, potentially you focus a little bit too, like I'd like to challenge how much you focus on perfectionism versus you've been saying you're going to do business for the last 4 months. It's not happened. When are you going to start that? And that's the bit. This is a real juicy stuff, but that's what actually she wants to do. She's putting it off and helping others and serving. Her intention's so great. But, and I'm not harming it. I'm just being honest and having that, the honest conversation. But it's so interesting to me. I don't care but I would care if I wasn't confident that I had the knowledge and experience in what I talk about and what I know. So I guess it's that I'm confident in where I feel a master of my craft as such. I'm ever evolving in that, and I'm not perfect, but I'm very comfortable and confident in this is what I do know, and I do it very well. And I think that, and I think having a conversation, I'm very good at that. I was thinking earlier of something with people and a mentor for the coaching academy. And I was like, yeah, I do good at this. I do it well, because I'm instantly able to come back with, what the next steps are, what they should do, great advice. And I think that that's sometimes a bit of the ingredient, is that focus on what you do really well and just get better at mastering that as well. Not everything, just find, like you should, what works for you. And that becomes the authenticity part, doesn't it?
It does, and it's also the reason that people come and buy stuff from you. Yeah. Or if you're employed, it's the reason why you got your job and why you get your next one. It's your USP, unique selling point. Yeah. And that's all about your strengths. Yeah. And one of my slightly separate bugbears is where we focus too much on understanding and exploring our weaknesses in the true sense, the stuff you're not yet good at. Because it's the strengths. Yeah, the strengths are the reason you got your job, or your clients. They're the reason they keep coming back. That's where you're adding the value. So you really want to spend lots of time strengthening, improving, enhancing those. That might be adding new ones in, but it's also certainly growing the ones you've got.
This I just want to say though, actually, because whilst we're just on that, because it's really interesting, because it came from me earlier, because this is very much a coaching mindset. But I remember when a mentor once said to me, what your weakness is, and I was like, I don't have any. And I was like, because like you said, you prefer the word challenges, I always used to like the word opportunities. And then I thought to myself about it. I sat there and thought, why don't I like weaknesses? And it was because it just made me feel that I was rubbish at something, and that didn't sit well with me. That made me nervous and tense and uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't want to feel that. But then actually I realized that, well, actually, if I really face into that fear or uncomfortable feeling, the reality is that the output of saying weaknesses in my head probably actually drives more action for me, if I'm really honest. I had to go and explore it. And
Yeah.
and since then I have been more, because he was like, no, it's weaknesses. And I was like, yeah. And again, that's where language can be powerful. And actually, in some ways, maybe you could say I was conformed to what he thinks, but I did go out and explore it, and I realized what's the difference in the action I take. So I'm all about, what's results and action. But it was that my natural instinct is to be I need to change that now. I've got to, it's not a, oh, can work on it, that's a nice thing. It's no, I've got to actually change that. It means something to me and I want to go and change it. Why? So then my question to you is, what's the reason for the preference in the word challenges versus weaknesses? Where does that come from?
Okay, so there's a couple of things in weaknesses. One is this assumption that you should work on them, because I'm not convinced that's entirely true. And actually, I split weaknesses down into 3 categories.
Okay.
So you've got opportunities, that is one of them. You have threats, that's another, and you have inherent weakness, which is another. So inherent, opportunity, threat. Opportunity is going to enhance you. It is something you haven't yet experienced, or a sector you don't yet work in, or a tool you've not yet mastered, which may become a strength. It may just become a nothing. There's a gap between weakness and strength. Like when I'm doing my laundry or cooking, I'm okay at it. It's not a strength. It's not a weakness. It's just, just okay at it, right? So the opportunities are the ones that we want to spend our time focusing on and doing, because they could be really exciting for us.
Yeah.
The threats are the ones that are causing us real harm. So that might be that we've taken on client work that we actually can't do. And if we don't tackle that problem, we're going to let our clients down, and that's going to hurt our business. Or, we're in our job and we are failing at something, and we're going to get in trouble and ultimately lose our job. So they're threats. And inherent weaknesses are the ones, like for me, my bits of my dyslexia that are ingrained and I can never get rid of. But I can mitigate. But I don't really want to rush to tell anyone, because they could kind of maybe hold it against me. And I'm not yet feeling confident enough in a work environment I'm confident enough to share it. But I think it's different within the workplace. So I think there's 3 types of weaknesses. The reason I say challenges is because I mean the really wired, that hardwired things that you can mitigate, but you can never work on and improve to change.
Yeah.
So if I have a memory challenge, I can do things which will slightly lift my memory performance, then that's great. And that's totally fine. My memory is totally acceptable for everything we kind of want. But in relative terms to everything else I can do, it's a real weakness. And so I'm better to not rely on trying to memorize stuff. I talked about taking my laptop around to take notes. Well, I could also save all important information on it, so that if something did come up, rather than having to recall finance data off the top of my head, give me 30 seconds and I'll be able to find it, because I had a logical filing system. I knew exactly how to access the information I needed, etc. So I had other workarounds to kind of compensate for those. So those are the 3. But I think challenges are these kind of more hardwired, more ingrained things, which are probably more my inherent weaknesses, to be fair.
Yeah.
I also like to think of those a bit. I'm going to wave a coin. So if anyone is listening and they've got a coin, then dig it out of their pocket and have a look. It's obviously 2 sides, right? And often what I find is the strengths that we have are one side of the coin. I don't mind, pick your own, heads or tails. Which is your favorite side of a coin?
Tails.
Tails, right. So let's say the tails side is your strengths, and that's fantastic. You can't only have your strengths. You can't cut the coin so you don't have the head side, the other side. I mean, it might not show, but you've still got 2 sides to a coin. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So some of my strengths are inherently connected to some of my inherent weaknesses, my challenges. And therefore, rather than being cross that I have these inherent challenges, or feeling the need to try and change the drawing of that head side to be something different, to try and take away my inherent challenges, what I really need to do, and this is all about confidence, is accept that I'm this coin, and that's okay. Because the tail side of the coin is marvelous and magical, and that's what you're paying me for, and that's what other people pay me for, and that's why my friends like me, and that's why I make a massive difference in the world. And the head side, it's okay. I'm just gonna accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's and a lot of this as well is, like I shared, is that reflective part of taking it away, isn't it? And what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes as well, I think the confidence say, like, I don't know at the moment. I don't know, and things, I'm not sure what that looks like. And that's what's powerful coaching, isn't it? Simply like, oh, I need the answer. What's the silver bullet? And it's like, do you know what? Sometimes there might be nothing, but 3 years down the road, 6 months, I don't know, the penny drops, the light bulb moment, the aha moment, and suddenly that's sooner rather than 10 years, and it's changed your life. So it's that open-mindedness and patience again, and that trust that what does it mean, and it will show up. And it's sometimes just letting things be, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's one of the bit I just want to come back to, actually, from earlier on. I think environment is really important.
Yeah.
And I think as small business owners, we can forget at times that we choose who our clients are.
Yeah.
We can pick who we work with. We can pick which communities we hang out in. We can pick who we pay to help us. And in employment, sometimes we get a bit we kind of feel restricted into our teams, but ultimately we pick the teams that we work for in our jobs, right? We can move. If you were in an environment where your directness was a hindrance, it is possible. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible to move to a different environment, and like a competitor, for example, maybe, or just simply a different team within the same wider organization. And it's saying, okay, well, if I am like this, where do I thrive? Now let's go find an environment. Let's go find that environment so that I will thrive. And do you know what? I'm going to be loved for it.
Yeah.
Because where I'm thriving, I'm making a massive difference, and they love me, rather than trying to constrain myself into this existing world. Does that make sense?
It does. It's making me reflect. I love making notes as well. I always remember my boss said to me once, and I do talk about it quite a lot actually. He said, "You don't push your potential enough, and you fear failure." And I was like, "Pee off!" It really hit me like a smack in the face hearing that. It really did. And then, but since then, and again, that is stuck with me. And leaving the corporate world and going all into my business, I do look back and think, yeah, I didn't push my potential. I wasn't lazy by any means. I was always driven and that ambitious, but I didn't push my potential, no, because I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And this is what I talk about business. When you love what you do, genuinely, you come from I say this idea of, courage, and this, I can't take credit for this. It's Ryan Holiday says it in, I can't think of the title of his name. It's about courage, and he talks about courage being like from the core and love and everything, and that's what it means in Latin and that. And for me, I took that to mean that when you come from a place of loving what you do, then you shouldn't have fear and all of that anyway. You should be embracing, like you say, you should love yourself and embrace that. And yeah, I think going and doing the coaching business, it's hard, it's challenging, like anything, of course it is. But I absolutely love what I do. I'm immersed in it. Therefore, I feel more confident, and I find I thrive and I push my potential more, and I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm doing things and looking at myself as a spectator going, WTF, what are you doing, girl? But I just think, sod it. Like, I've got, I know I can add, like you said, I know I add value, and it's in this place, this place, and this place. I have no idea about that. It's not my thing. I do business and business mindset to a degree, from the points of how's it holding you back in your business now. But I said, if people come out to me for just pure mindset, it's not me. I said, I don't want to do it. It's not my thing. However, I know some amazing in it. Off you go. Like you said, we get to pick our clients, and that's that part of serving. And that's sometimes that energy brings people towards you with that. It's really interesting. And yeah, I think as well, the idea of confidence, that we always think, like we said earlier, that you're younger and I just want to be there and I just want it now. And I once said to somebody on an interview that, I kind of wish I'd found coaching earlier and everything like that, and done my own business earlier. And it's like, but if I wouldn't be who I am now without that confident, all of that experience to make me who I am now. And it's the same with confidence, that you can't just be that. It's got to take that time and everything.
Yeah.
And like you say, the environment is absolutely a huge part, being around successful people, being around people that, they're not toxic positive, but they've got the energy you want, and they bring out the best in you. This is this idea that I love. I would say experience, knowledge with confidence. But Simon Sinek shared it. I just sound like I quote loads of people, but it's because they inspire me. And he said that the added part for him is people believing in you. Like you said, you have that skill to see potential in people, and that's rare stuff. That's the juicy stuff I love, and I see it in some people. And you used to get it, you got it in insights as such in corporate world. Sometimes you'd see some people and you think there's something about them. And I remember, and there's elements, I guess, when we do what we love, it's right to say, like, we have it. We have that when we have certain points of being at our best in what we do, because we're coming from a place of intent and purpose. And I remember walking in front of directors in head office and that, and I sat down and he was like, oh, he goes, you know, you ain't in the room, don't you? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you just got pure purpose when you walk in. He goes, it's really like, there's the people look at you, stop and look at you. And I was like, well, okay. And there's parts of it that I thought, I don't want to be arrogant in that, but I know what he means. But it's like, but that's because when I walked in, it's like, I love what I do there. I'm there with purpose and intent, knowing I can serve and make a difference, help people. Yeah. And that's that part that I'm loving it. And you see those pockets in people, and that's that part and belief that then that's where you can help people with confidence.
So what's fascinating? Yeah, what's fascinating in the way you said that, when you just did the, okay. And actually the face you pulled, which was almost like not feeling it. What's fascinating is one of your strengths is a strong character. You have a strong personality. You radiate that strong personality. In terms of growing a business, that's a fantastic asset. You're very lucky to have that. Or are you lucky? That is just how you are. And that's brilliant. Use that as a major strength. I know many, many people who do not have that. And so it's much harder for them to just do that. If they walk into a room, they can't command a room. They find it hard to get their message across. When asked what they do, they're very passionate about what they do, but they stumble over the words to try and explain, because actually they love what they do, not trying to talk to other people about what it is. And that all comes back to really harnessing how we are individually and making the most of it. You've got this great opportunity, and I'm glad that you're using it. That's awesome. I'd encourage that for other people who that doesn't resonate with, don't beat themselves up. And I think one of the most dangerous things in confidence is comparison.
Yeah.
Because someone might look at you and go, wow, Natalie's really confident. I just want to be confident like Natalie. It's like, okay, so they could, of course, do things that would help with their confidence, from stature to message to, pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. Of course, there's stuff they can do. But actually, if they're comfortable with themselves authentically, they don't need to be more like you. They can be more like them. And they can let their sparkle shine out, rather than needing to copy someone else's or emulate someone else's.
Yeah.
So I just think I think comparison is a real danger for people.
Yeah. You're spot on. It's really interesting to see how that moves on for. I guess, kind of wrapping it up, who has been your best mentor and why?
Oh, great question. So I've had a few like really good bosses. I've had some like absolutely tragically awful ones as well. But I've had two in particular who were just amazing. They were very good at nurturing and encouraging and empowering, and they're three overused words, but it's the idea that you can go off and do your thing. You've got the empowerment to go and do that, but you're not on your own. You're not like hung out to dry. If it doesn't quite work out, you're not going to get an absolute kicking, but they're supporting you and trying to help you work it through. And were they confident? Are they confident? Yes, absolutely. These are senior people in a FTSE 100 company who have continued to progress and continue to become more and more senior, and they're brilliant. So what I've loved about them though is seeing how, they're both very different. They're very different styles. One is much more direct. One is very, very fast. In those sessions, it's go, 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 go. Here's information, bang, 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 done, right off, we're off. And so I know for me, I'm like, right, I need to, add 20 to my energy level, if not 50 to my energy percent to my energy level to go in to deliver this piece of information. But it's how they get through the workload they need to do. But they're supporting me and nurturing me and encouraging me. I don't operate like that. I don't do it at that sort of level. But there's so much I could learn from them about how they interacted with people. They also ran teams, separately at different times, but of, at least 140 people through many layers of organization. But just the way that they dealt with people, dealt with issues, was an absolute inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And that's something I've modeled, and I've done that throughout my career. I've looked at the strengths of people and gone, what is it they do? I'd like to emulate that. But also, why are they doing it? How does it fit with their personality? And so the people who are just naturally, I've got friends who can walk into a room and they could just start talking, and almost everyone around them will just turn and look at them.
Yeah.
They can just hold a stage wherever they are. I don't have that skill. They do. They use that. I'm never going to try and emulate it. So even if I think that's amazing, which I do, I don't. But it's okay. I don't need it. I will do it a different way.
Yeah.
I'll do it my way, and my way will work. It's just a
Yeah.
different way of doing it.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Look, thank you so much. That's been a really interesting and I think interesting because it's given me lots of, so I don't know the answer to all of that, and I love that as well. That it's like there's loads of thought-provoking things there and reflections to think about. What does that mean to me? What can that mean to others? How can you help people with that? And just the variety is the conversation too. And from one word, isn't it? This is what I love about this. Even if people say, "What's confidence?" It's like, well, it's this. It's like, is it? So it's really interesting. So thank you first of all for your vulnerability and your shares and your insights, and also for your time. I really appreciate it. How can people connect with you?
So I'd love them to come and connect with me either on LinkedIn or Instagram. On both platforms, I've got the same name. This Mike Cole. This Mike Cole. There are loads of Mike Coles, and so I picked this one. This Mike Cole. So Instagram, if they want to get a little view of kind of what goes on in my life behind the scenes, so to speak, check out my stories on Instagram. That's a lovely way to connect and get to know me a bit better. On LinkedIn, in theory, I'm posting thoughtful stuff, which is like, oh yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I need to do more of that than I do. So but two good ways of connecting.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to Being Confident from Within. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it inspired you in trusting no matter what happens in any particular situation, you'll be able to handle it and learn from the outcome. I really love hearing from you, so please leave a review and let me know which part of the episode resonated with you the most. Have an amazing day.